Everyone is having a wonderful day. My name is Donovan Lazar, and I want to welcome you to the final webcast of a three-part EnerKnol Research Demand Response series with our research manager, Eric Davis, and analyst, Jack Lawson. Eric brings nearly 5 years of combined energy policy analysis and engineering experience. His previous work was in mining engineering in the western U.S. coal region, but he now immersed himself in the market implications of policy and regulation across all energy sectors. Jack has spent the past several years analyzing the oil and gas industry on 4 continents as a markets reporter. He has since expanded his scope from fossil fuels to domestic energy policy, including but not limited to power and utilities. For those of you new to our company, I want to take a couple of moments to introduce us. EnerKnol is an energy policy data and analytics company. We have developed the first real-time energy policy decision support software, an easy-to-use dashboard giving access to relevant filings from hundreds of energy regulators plus federal, state, and local legislation all in one place. Quite simply, we are the Google of energy policy. We are quickly becoming a go-to resource for energy consultants, industry analysts, buy-side or sell-side analysts, and other energy professionals. We save users money, but the most precious thing of all is time. Our data and research tilts the playing field in your favor. If you'd like a test run, simply go to EnerKnol.com and register on the homepage. One of our customer care team will contact you to set up a time to talk. You can take the next step and register for a demo. Before we get started, a bit of webcast logistics. If you have any questions during the webcast, please enter them into the question box on your webcast dashboard. We'll address those questions at the end of the presentation. So, this 3-part demand response webcast series covers various aspects and impacts of the FERC Order 745 debate, including possible scenarios in the case of an upheld vacatur, based on the data and analysis from our more detailed comprehensive research report that is available now on EnerKnol.com. The first webcast covered the key points of contention around demand response compensation in wholesale energy markets, which is the basis of FERC Order 745. We analyze who the opposing and supporting petitioners are, their respective arguments, and why the decision will impact specific industries. In our second demand response webcast, we discussed current demand response markets across each of the 7 regional transmission organizations. In today's third and final webcast, we will cover various scenarios and driving factors for demand response to thrive in different regions and markets. Our main focus will be on the recently proposed PJM and approved New England capacity market reforms, as well as New York's backdrop market design. We'll also head west and check out California's new utility-led design and how it relates to other regional activity. We'll then provide a brief recap of previous webcast points, open up the presentation to Q&A, and we'll aim to end this around 1:30. Just a quick reminder for new listeners not familiar with demand response, already familiar with demand response. It is reduced energy consumption in response to high prices, incentives, or emergency events. And the Federal Energy Regulation Commission, or FERC, governs the wholesale energy markets and just and reasonable rate formation. Order 745 created uniform payment levels for demand response equal to generators' rates in wholesale energy markets, and is the structure that is now being disputed. So let's get right into it. Eric, as we discussed in our first 2 webcasts, PJM leads the way in demand response participation. However, due to the Order 745 uncertainty and some recent reliability challenges, the RTO is pursuing a new capacity market design. Can you describe this and how it may impact demand response resources?
Yes, Donovan. Thanks. As we briefly discussed in our first webcast, PJM's capacity market aims to achieve system reliability through supply commitments 3 years ahead of delivery. And this market is a significant source of revenue for demand response providers, specifically aggregators or curtailment service providers. Just one example is EnerKnol, who derived about $175 million, or nearly 45% of their 2013 revenues from this market alone. However, as key responsibility of an RTO is to ensure reliable electricity delivery, PJM has proposed capacity market reforms to help better achieve this. And a big driver to this effort was the significant reliability threats that arose in the winter of January 2014. Specifically, on January 7th, the PJM region experienced an extended cold weather event, also well known as the polar vortex, which led to more than 40,000 megawatts of forced generator outages and an all-time record winter peak load of nearly 142,000 megawatts. This can be seen in detail in the picture, a figure of what types of outages there were. They were spread across many different assets. The outages amounted to nearly 22% of the total regional capacity, and luckily, demand response resources were available to provide more than 4,500 megawatts to help avoid regional blackouts. However, in an effort to ensure improved system reliability through its capacity market and better position itself for Order 745 uncertainty, PJM initially proposed its capacity performance market design in August of last year. And after considering stakeholder feedback, they filed formal tariff reforms on January 14th of this year. So the capacity performance proposal provides a backstop policy considering the ongoing Order 745 uncertainty. And in the proposal, demand response would move from its current supply side commitment, similar to a generator, to the demand side as a reduction in wholesale load requirement from a load serving entity or utility. The new incentive here would be avoided costs, not capacity supply payment. So the proposal would also set strict performance requirements across the board, including demand response. And this would force them to be available year-round for multiple consecutive days. So this requirement would prove challenging and could effectively eliminate the majority of demand response from future capacity market auctions and delivery years if it cannot economically commit to the strict performance requirements. So also under the proposal, curtailment service providers would not be permitted to offer demand response directly into the PJM market, but would need to enter into agreements with the load-serving entities to ultimately indirectly participate in the capacity market. So PJM recognizes that not implementing the wholesale load reduction alternative would result in continued uncertainty with the case pending before the Supreme Court, including the possibility of an upheld order, which would require re-examination of this year's upcoming auction if the backstop policy wasn't in place. So regardless of the Order 745 outcome, the future of demand response in PJM capacity markets rests really with its capacity performance proposal. And the strict all-hours multi-day availability requirements could eliminate, again, a significant portion of demand response from its capacity market, starting mainly in the 2017 auction for the 2020 to 2021 delivery year. The program requirements would be phased in over the next few years to account for the existing demand response capacity commitments and to mitigate negative market impacts. And the proposal is still under FERC review.
Thanks, Eric. Again, building on our previous webcast, the New England region is also a leader in demand response participation in its organized electricity markets. Are they working on any market reforms, and if so, what do they look like?
Yes, Donovan. The New England Independent System Operator actually provided the base model for PJM's capacity performance proposal and the penalty structure mainly, which will better hold cleared capacity to account for its real-time actions. So New England's capacity market reform, also known as pay for performance, was also created in response to reliability concerns with committed capacity resources in times of peak demand. The New England design does not, however, significantly challenge demand response capacity asset qualification when compared to PJM's strict proposal. Also, the ISO has been refining its tariff governing demand response participation in its markets for the past few years. And on January 9th of this year, FERC approved the ISO's latest filing to fully integrate demand response resources into its wholesale markets, primarily regarding its reserve market price-responsive demand product. It also combines demand response, this also really combines demand response assets with those that can supply net energy to the grid also, so pushing energy back to the grid, as these resources were previously considered two separate assets. So it really just clears things up a bit. And the revisions will enable efficient co-optimization of resource dispatch through this and expand the available resource pool to supply energy and operating reserves in real time and on a forward basis. And this all supports a more reliable electric system and increased competition. So in the region, regardless of the FERC Order 745 outcome, the ISO's efforts to integrate demand response into its markets through defined performance and compensation measures aim to ensure that market stability going forward. And the results of the region's 9th forward capacity market show a recovery in cleared active demand response resources, actually.
Great. Getting back to the topic of backstop proposals, Jack, can you discuss what the New York ISO proposing for its capacity market in the case of an upheld Order 745 decision?
Sure, Donovan. The New York Independent System Operator has outlined a few models for demand response participation in its capacity market in the case of an upheld Order 745 decision. Similar to the general PJM proposal, the ISO aims to continue demand response capability, but shift resources to only load-serving entity-based participation. The backstop model would eliminate capacity payments, and again, similar to PJM, simply count demand response commitments as a credit or reduction of a load-serving entity's capacity requirement. Broadly, in the case of an upheld Order 745 decision, the ISO aims to minimize any impacts to its capacity design and administrative oversight. The ISO introduced its backstop market designs to stakeholders in December and recently issued an update, choosing to pursue a model for load-serving entities to consider all demand response resources in its zone for participation, not just from existing electricity customers. The ISO will continue to work on the design and issue another update later this month. So I hope our listeners are hearing one common theme here, and that's that in the case of an upheld 745 decision, demand response participation in and outside of organized electricity markets will largely depend on utility leadership. For retail programs, this will also require leadership from respective state public utility commissions and legislatures. New York provides an example of this. Late last year, the PSC ordered all state utilities to propose tariff revisions to implement demand response programs by this summer. The filing deadline was recently extended by 1 week to this upcoming Monday. This is largely in the same vein as the New York reforming the energy vision going forward, which aims to shift the state's entire power and utility sector to a more customer-focused and open market design.
All right, let's move to California. Jack, speaking of utility-led programs, can you provide a quick update on what California's big three utilities are doing with demand response program implementation?
Absolutely, Eric. The California PUC has been working with the Pacific Gas and Electric, San Diego Gas and Electric, and Southern California Edison for the past few years on implementing step forwards with regards to third-party participation in the state's organized electricity market through Electric Rules 24 and 32. This case is it's really interesting because the state is leveraging the aforementioned utilities to facilitate whole market participation and handle the initial development costs, which will amount to around $2 or $3 million for each year. Each utility this year. The state will cover these initial costs, and the utilities target initial cumulative participation of more than 30,000 customers by January of 2016. Pending success of these initial programs, the PUC aims to expand them for potential wide-scale deployment by March 2017.
That sounds awesome. Tell me this, Jack. California has some technical development priorities to address prior to significant market growth. What is the significance of technology improvements in the national demand response conversion?
Sure. Broadly speaking, demand response growth is not possible without additional technology deployment and development. The realm of advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI, including smart meters, data management software, and communication systems provide the backbone for this valuable resource. The grid connectivity these AMI components provide allows both large-scale demand response resources and aggregators to participate in retail and wholesale markets. Smart meter deployment will further allow demand response extension to residential customers. According to EIA data, as of 2013, there were just about 52 million advanced meters deployed across the nation, which amounts to approximately 38% of total meters. This is a huge jump from 5 years earlier, when there was approximately 12 million advanced meters deployed. In addition to smart meters, proliferation of smart thermostats, energy storage, and on-site renewable generation will also facilitate demand response growth in the market over the long term.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Eric, so as we now look to wrap up the discussion, can you give us a quick review of key takeaways from our webcast series as we conclude? We encourage our listeners to submit written questions via the webcast platform. Eric, give us a little bit of a review here on some key takeaways.
Sure. A Supreme Court review of the Order 745 case could result in redefining FERC jurisdiction over demand response and amending the demand response language in the Federal Power Act. If Order 745 is vacated, demand response participation in wholesale electricity markets could lose their incentive, resulting in increased power generation and associated emissions. This would affect state and national efficiency and generation reduction goals. In addition, in the absence of demand response participation, expensive peaking power plants will be sought to address peak demand, resulting in increased power prices in energy markets. So, in summary, the impacts of an upheld Order 745 decision are real and would be intensely felt by stakeholders in the RTO regions, such as PJM and ISO New England, in regards to consistent wholesale market compensation structure and system reliability. However, impacts to wholesale energy markets will be somewhat limited due to the varying participation levels, and the greatest threat is the uncertainty to potential capacity market impacts, which in turn impact future wholesale market participation and compensation. So this uncertainty has and will continue to hinder demand response technology investments for organized electricity market participation. But despite the initial impacts, in the absence of FERC regulation of demand response in wholesale markets, states, retail rate regulators, and individual utilities will continue to open opportunities for the resource to impact peak demand, electricity costs, and technology industry investments. So we must remember that demand response exists at significant levels outside of FERC jurisdictional markets. And this is where a lot of the innovation will come in the next decade. To facilitate this, state regulators must strive for consistency across retail program structures, as inconsistent rate, qualification, and other program design factors can be a significant barrier to demand response growth. And as mentioned earlier, clear and consistent wholesale and retail program design will facilitate technology investments pertinent to demand response growth across the nation. So in the retail world, consistent program design will be the responsibility of state utility commissions as they ultimately govern utility rate design and approvals. So state PUCs can also directly order demand response program creation, like we've seen in California and New York, or achieve similar goals by working with state legislators to implement energy efficiency resource standards. So going forward, we must stress that demand response resource growth is a long-term discussion dependent on many moving parts. However, if technology, regulatory, economic, and utility system planning factors move in agreeing directions, demand response may become a widespread resource leading to meaningful peak load reductions.
Thanks, Eric. That's a great place to conclude our three-part demand response webcast series. Again, you can get all this information and much more in our report titled Demand Response to Grow Under Alternate Scenarios Regardless of FERC Order 745 Outcome. Purchase the report now on EnerKnol.com. Let's now get to Q&A. We've received a number of registered and submitted questions prior to the webcast and also during the presentation. We picked out a few consistent themes. The first question is, How does demand response play into the EPA proposed Clean Power Plan? Who wants to take this one?
I'll grab that one. So the EPA Clean Power Plan, as proposed, for those not familiar, aims to cut carbon emissions from existing power plants on a cumulative nationwide basis 30% from 2005 levels by 2030. And the emission cuts vary by state based on various factors such as existing generation fleet, potential reductions from that fleet, access to alternative forms of generation, and a few others. The agency is has proposed 4 building blocks really to achieve the emissions reductions, and energy efficiency is one of those, and that includes demand response. Although it is not required that states use demand response to cut emissions, it is a potentially viable option, although likely not high on many states' lists of methods. This is because demand response would need to reach a bit more regular deployment, as small dispatches for short periods of time will have really limited effect on overall emissions cuts. However, with supportive policies and technologies, and wide-scale demand response use could limit the use of high-emitting peaker plants during seasonal peak demand periods, therefore reducing emissions.
Great. Our next question is, can you discuss demand response outside of the U.S.? What are some of the international markets like?
Let me take this one. Broadly, Europe suffers from similar barriers to domestic demand response market development. And the main factor is inconsistent and incomplete regulatory frameworks, denying access to wholesale markets. The existing demand response programs are mainly at the commercial level in Western Europe, in France, the UK, and a few other places. Despite some participation in regulatory reform efforts, the nations still lack many important measurement, verification, and payment structures needed to incent market growth. And continuing on to the other side of the globe, Australia's demand response market is also growing, with commercial and aggregator companies participating in real-time wholesale capacity and retail markets. In addition to Australia, we've seen some early activity in China through large commercial entities, but their lack of former wholesale markets is absolutely a barrier to development.
Great. Listen, I want to thank everybody again for the submitted questions and for joining us for this final webcast in our 3-part demand response series. As a reminder for all you, this information and more, you can get to EnerKnol. You can get it to EnerKnol.com right now and purchase the report titled Demand Response to Grow Under Alternate Scenarios, regardless of FERC Order 745 outcome. Eric, we'll have to work on cutting these titles down a little bit. They're just crazy. But as I discussed in the introduction, EnerKnol data will keep you on top of any and all policy moves, including Order 745. Don't pass up an opportunity to test drive the platform while you can. Go to EnerKnol.com and register for a demo today. For more information about any of our research and services, please visit our website at EnerKnol.com, at EnerKnol.com, or call us directly at 212-537-4797. Thank you very much for attending, and have a great afternoon.